Alrighty, because I've been meaning to do a bit of a video on back testing and everything, and back testing's like really important. Even if I'm providing templates to suit a particular pair, if you can get fluent with back testing yourself, and you can back test, maybe you find settings that are a bit better or whatever. But even if you don't, you can see that the settings are what give you the best average results over time,
Yep.
and that and if you can see that it's doing that, you can have more confidence, and then you're less likely to interfere with the software. The software will have losing streaks as well. So you might take a loss for multiple days in a row, and you start to think this isn't working. So you change settings, you play around, you close some trades manually, that sort of thing. Um, and then you're sort of stuffed up with that long term average. So you need to. It doesn't matter what sort of trading you do. You need to get to where you're confident in your EA and your settings, or confident in your manual trading strategy. Because if you're not confident with it, you won't stick with it properly.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you have 10 losing trades in a row. As long as averaged out over time, you're up in dollars.
Yep.
Most most of with Volatility Master, there's a good risk to reward ratio. So this isn't the settings that are in the templates, mind you, because I was playing around showing some people some stuff earlier. But if you have a look, we've got a risk percentage of 1, but we're aiming to make 6%, or we're risking 1.2 for the whole day, but we're aiming to make 6. So if you had 5 losing days in a row and then one winning day, you'd break even. So you don't need to win as many times as you lose in order to make money.
Yep. Yeah, due to that risk reward. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just roughly what normally I've got 3.5% daily profit goal, and the take profit is usually just at about 1900, and the trailing stop loss is a little bit less, and the profit loss a little bit less as well. But what I did earlier was I was playing around on. I don't remember where I was on last Thursday, and what we did, we just ran the back tester for last Thursday, and the results we got were about break even on the default template settings. Actually, what we've got on the screen there now is last Thursday, and so the market came up a bit, and then when it looked to be breaking below where it had been for the day, it took out the first trade, second, third, and fourth trade. But on the default settings, it because the default settings had the trailing stop loss at about 800 points, and just the width of one of those candles was 1100. So it was tapping out the trailing stop loss, so taking profit, but only smaller profit, and then continuing the right way, and then taking small profit and continuing down. So by playing with those settings, and we increased the take profit and the trailing stop and the profit lock, so that hang on, what I wanted to change, and the pair profit goal, I think we put that up to 12%. And then when we back tested it on those settings, we ended up making 12% profit instead of break even.
Having that larger stop loss too.
Yeah, the
Was that
not the larger stop loss, but the larger profit lock and trailing stop loss, as well as
trailing?
a larger take profit as well. So each individual trade could take a lot more. Um, yeah, so like from this first trade here, when the normal take profit is at about 1900, that's about there. It's just it was quite a volatile day, so that's where the take profit would normally be,
Yep.
which in this volatile conditions doesn't look like very much. But normally that's quite a bit. Um, but we changed it to 5,000 because that's how far the market dropped. So this is sort of like trading in hindsight. So you don't ever have the advantage of seeing exactly what the market's going to do before it happens. But just as a backtesting exercise, we adjusted the settings to squeeze as much profit as we could out of that little drop there. And what I prefer to do, and I will, when I first start backtesting, is I use the visual mode so that we can see the chart actually working. And that way you can see exactly what happens. Why did that trade lose? Was it always going to lose, or could it just been tweaked a little bit to improve that? And in this particular case, to stop those trailing stops getting hit all the time, we just increase the distance behind. So changing it from like a break-even day to making 12%, that's fantastic. Obviously,
That's huge, huge.
it is, but the whole point of doing this is to show you that that's pointless. That there was no point doing that really,
Yeah, yeah,
because average out long term, those settings don't work out the best. They were perfect for that particular day, but we tailor made them to suit what happened that day.
yeah.
So, really, in my opinion, unless the settings are averaging a decent return over at least a 6 month period, then they're pretty much worthless, really. Because whenever you're doing back testing, you're doing it in hindsight. You already know exactly what the market did, so you're coming up with settings to suit that.
Yeah,
The
it's
longer
not
that,
forward testing.
yeah, yeah, you can't forward test, unfortunately. Um, if you if it works well, if those settings work well over like a 6 month period, I'll just
Yep.
pause that for a second, then they've obviously gone through several different market conditions and scenarios, and it's come out on top. So then it's worthwhile. It's most likely going forward, it's going to repeat some of those historical situations. Because you would have covered most of them. But anyway, let's just having a look at this. That's the first trade kicks in, trailing stops coming down. The second trade, and see it nearly tapped it out. It doesn't because we adjusted them. And you're in 7% profit, 6, 7. There's our third trade in place, 11% and 12%. We just hit that 12% profit. So that's we're viewing this on the 5 minute time frame. So from the time that first trade was taken out until it hit 12% profit was about 50 minutes. So just
Wow, that's
50
some
minutes worth of
volatility.
trading. So um, that's what you want with volatility markets. You can catch a nice steep, well, it doesn't have to be steep, but a nice neat even drop down or
Mm.
drop up, or
Some nice momentum there.
a nice trend either way. It doesn't have to be any like, and the distance that market moved was about 500 points, well, 430 points, pips, sorry. Um, so a decent little bit of movement, but nothing huge. And so if you are like I normally do, I'm only aiming for that 3.5% profit per day on gold. You only need about half of that amount of movement in order for it to give you the results that you're aiming for. But anyway, so then it's good to watch the visual, but it takes a lot longer. So then I tend to get rid of the visual. Um, and then what we looked at was, so if we So now I've just set it for all of last week. So if we back test those settings all of last week, and instead of looking at the visual side of things, we'll just look at it on the graph here because it goes through a lot quicker. We'll see how those settings would have went over the course of a full week. Hang on, I think oops. I'm not sure which day we did it on. I'm just trying to get the same results we did earlier today because it explains the point fairly well. Doesn't seem to be doing anything. Sometimes on Zoom, everything works a little bit slower on you.
Yeah.
But so that was last Monday. We would have made 12%.
Yep.
And then we have it set to only be able to lose that sort of 1% per day. So it wouldn't matter now if we had 4 losing days in a row, we would still end up with an 8% profit for the week. So that was a losing day. So Tuesday we lost 1%. Yeah, when you're not on Zoom, a week back testing goes really quick. It just slows down everything, I guess. Maybe I just need a better computer or better broadband or something. And so that was a little win on Wednesday. And that was Wednesday as well. So a little win and then a loss. So just a very small loss on Wednesday. And then that was the Thursday, another 12%. So we tailor made these settings to suit this Thursday. And as it turned out, for that whole week, it would have hit 12% twice. So it's looking good. But even a week isn't enough. So what we then did was we back tested on those settings over a full month. So we made 23% for the week on those settings. So you sort of can't help but get excited when you see those sort of things. But then when we go back and we do it over a full month, you actually find out that it's still not bad, but not great. And this is going to take a little while for it to do this full month, but we'll just let it do its thing while we're chatting. Um, what I like to see on backtesting results, other than a nice big positive profit, is I'd like to see it to be a nice even run up, so that there's
Consistency.
consistent profit all the time instead of just nothing, 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 and then one big win.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
in
that's
reality,
what.
if you then miss that one big win, you end up with nothing really.
Yep.
And that's what we find in this full month of back testing. We have a fair bit of up and down, but after 3 weeks, we've made nothing.
Yep.
And then that last week, we still made that 23%, so it was worthwhile. But
There's no predicting
trying,
that.
yeah, I mean, the end result, the dollar value at the end of the result isn't the only thing I'm looking for on back testing. I'm looking for the most consistent results,
Yep.
which is also giving the lowest drawdown as well.
Yep.
So if I made in the back testing results, if I made let's say 20% profit and I ended up the biggest drawdown was let's say 10 or 11%, I'd much prefer to have an end result where only made 15% profit, but the drawdown was 5%.
Yep.
On that note, in the back testing, one of the when you have a look at the report, one of the statistics is called maximal drawdown, and that's because we've got this set at a 1% risk, so we're never ever going to get into more than actually 1% of drawdown. But
Yep.
if it says you've had 5% drawdown, that means the worst losing streak in a row. So you've basically had 5 losing trades in a row. That's
Yep.
where they get their 5% there from. Did you have any other questions? Like this is going to take a little while. So you got any other questions about the softwares and that while we wait for it to play out a bit?
Um, no, it's just trying to get my MT4 to actually run the strategy tester. You know how you download the history for
Yeah.
that here and then run it. It's just something I don't know what I'm doing wrong with.
No,
Like,
we'll just you can share your screen in a little while and we'll have a look at
yep.
that problem up. Shouldn't be a big issue, that's for sure.
No, I don't think it is. It's just yeah, I don't know. I have run bots on MP5. See, it's just different. I don't know. My computer, I don't know. Something I'm doing wrong anyway. Because I love this stuff, back testing,
Yeah, no,
especially EAs. I feel that I'm going to be more of a EA trader as
I
opposed.
do. Like you still got to know how to use them properly because you can still, like, people like to advertise them as, getting the emotion out of trading and all of that. But you can still interfere. If I can still come along and close a trade manually, or I can move the trailing stop losses, or I can adjust the settings halfway through. So if I let it, my emotions can still play a part.
Yeah, like the last few weeks I've been running the EAs and some of them I'll just close manually in profits, you know what I mean? Because some sort of basic understanding of the markets is still essential to trading EAs as well. So when the
Yeah,
EAs do pick up a trade, it sends it to my phone and then I'll check my charts and see what I see to
yeah.
see whether I should close early or take the loss, you know what I mean? Or adjust stop loss just in case, all that sort of thing. I still think, EAs are not 100% automated, but it depends.
Well, it definitely depends, and I agree. Basically, I mean, you can run the good EAs, you can run them completely hands free and everything. Um, but I think you can always get better results once you've got a bit of knowledge and have a bit of manual oversight.
Yep. And I love all this stuff, all the
Well,
technical. Why does it do this? Why does it do that? What part of the day? What market session? All that sort of thing. I love it.
I think if you can get your particular trading strategy into an EA and have it working right, then it's so easy to back test over a long period of time and see how that
Yep.
actually averages out.
Yep.
Mate, you wouldn't believe how many EAs I've created or sections of code to be added to an EA, which I just thought it was going to be fantastic, and I got it working really well, and I'm so excited. This is going to make it so much better. And then you back test it over the last 6 months, and it either reduces performance or it doesn't improve it at all. And you go, geez, it sounded so good too.
Yeah. With your EA breakout, the breakout one,
Yeah,
does that obviously pick up breakouts?
it does. Originally, I've ended up taking that breakout code and I've added that into volatility master now too. So it requires that breakout for it to trade.
Okay.
Those two EAs are sort of taken turns being my favourites over the last couple of years. I'll work on one and get it improved, and we'll work on another one. Um, they're both fairly user adjustable. You can adjust them quite a lot to suit your own style and everything. But CA stands for cost averaging breakout. So I had the original version of that was called cost averager because
Yeah.
it'll open, it'll open up a trade and it can cost average into position. So if the market doesn't instantly go into profit, it might open up a second or a third trade, and then it'll close them all out as a group. It can, depending on your settings, you can make that run like a full-on martingale type strategy as well, which is that's not a good thing really, but
Yeah. Like, yeah, if
but
it's
you
trying
can
to
do. So my
recover
point
at it.
is that one does cost average. So it CA breakout, it'll get an 80, 85% win rate, but and then volatility master averages probably only around about that 60 or 65% win rate, but volatility master will make you more money. So that's another point a lot of people don't understand is that the win rate doesn't matter at all. It,
No, if the
it
risk to
depends
reward
the
on the
risk to reward
strategy.
coupled with the win rate. But yeah, you could have a 90% win rate and still be losing
Yeah, I
if,
know a
if
trader.
the losses were much bigger.
I know a trader. He floats around 34% to 40% win rate, and he's
Yeah,
still profitable.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you only need a 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio, and
Yep.
34% is enough to be profitable.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to pause this recording and we'll go and have a look at yours and we'll come back to this one and then it'll be finished.
Okay.
Because there's a good point I want to make once we finish. So that's our full month on those settings. And as you can see, those first 3 weeks, at the end of 3 weeks, we were slightly down. Nothing terrible, but basically we made no money for 3 weeks. And then we had that one good week.
Yeah.
And I think I was saying before, that end result is fantastic. I'm more than happy with that. But I'd prefer the line go from here, go on a nice, neat
In a
diagonal to there.
yeah, in a nice upward direction.
So what I do from there is, you get excited because you've got settings to suit that one good week, but when you look further back, it's not really preferable. So then I start. The more you get to know the EA and the more you do back testing, the more you know what's sort of causing that. And so I know straight away that it's because I'm aiming to make too much. Aiming for 12% a day is pretty obviously fairly well out there.
Yeah.
Um, so I would suggest going on something smaller than that would be good.
Yeah. I,
And
I'm 3 to 5. I'll be happy with 3, but then
yeah,
again, I'm happy with 1%.
if you can average 1%, you'd be laughing
Yeah.
all year long.
Yeah.
But you've got to have some good ones to make up for the bad ones. So,
Yeah.
um, so what I like to do on top of that is then we'll start using that optimization feature. And then say to use the optimization feature, I'll show you how to use it and explain exactly what it does. But you got to choose which settings you want the optimization to work on. And I personally suggest just doing one setting at a time. So we're going to put a check on the pair profit goal, and we're going to start at 12%. And what it's going to do, it's going to back test that period on 12%, and then it's going to take 1% off that. So it's going to back test again on 11%, and then 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, right down to 3%.
Okay.
So when you're normally back testing, you don't have to worry about these three columns, just the first one. And these are all just dealing with the optimization. Um, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it over 1 week because, it takes too long to do 1 month, let alone do 1 month 10 times. So from whatever, we'll go from Monday, Tuesday to Tuesday. So that'll be 1 week at the start of start of April. And we've also got to check the optimization box here. And then when you click start, hang on, what have I done? April 10th to April 17th. That'll do. So just 1 week, and we'll start him up. Now, it doesn't do the visuals. It doesn't show a graph either. That's just showing the old graph we just did. All it does, it's going to show the results and the graph here, but it won't do that until it's actually done at least one lot of back testing. So if we just give it a few moments. And so that once it does the back testing for that week 10 times on those 10 different settings, then it's going to just arrange them in whichever one made the most profit. It'll do them in descending order. So you'll know which one of those settings worked the best. And then you can change that setting to that, and you can do the optimization on a different setting and run it through and see which one that works best. And as you work your way through, you can fine tune them quite nicely. Takes a fair while though. Like I would do it when I'm doing it seriously. Like we're only doing a week to speed it up, but even a month isn't long enough. I'd do it over like 6 months, and so it'd take me all week to do some proper back testing and optimize the settings. But you can set it up to start doing it of a morning, and when you get home at night, you'll have that lot of results, and then you can kick another lot off. I'm not sure if I mentioned this while I was recording, but one of the biggest benefits of doing your own back testing is that you can see how it works and how it works long term, and even these fantastic results. I think I was sharing a while back. I was sharing some results trading gold last year where I think we did like a full year's worth of back testing and it made 250% profit or something, which was fantastic. And it looked really good on the graph. It had that nice even growth up and everything. But even with that, if you zoomed in and looked at one section of it, there was a whole month, like 4 weeks in a row, where it was losing. We lost like 15% over the course of 4 or 5 weeks. So even on these fantastic results, they really couldn't have been any better. There was still one section in the middle where somebody had started using those settings and that software right then, they probably would have given up because they had 4 or 5 losing weeks in a row.
Yeah, this game is long term,
and that's the problem with a lot of things to do with trading, not just EAs. Is if people don't look long term, they can get frustrated too easily
and give up. Yep.
Even if you're manually trading, you need to have a bit of faith and belief in the strategy you're using. Otherwise, you tend to want to change it. And if let's say we'll go with EAs because it's easier to talk about and explain and backtest. But if you use, let's say the template settings I give you, if you use them for a week and the results weren't very good. So you change something and then you go a week and it wasn't very good. So you change something else and you go for another week. You can go, I've been using it for 4 weeks and it hasn't been good. I haven't made any money. But you haven't really. You've just used it for 1 week and then you've made a change and then a change and a change. So you haven't allowed that one strategy to run more than a week. And
Mm.
I can promise you right now, no matter which settings you tend to use, even if they're the ones I give you, you're going to have weeks where you take a loss. But the average long term is all that matters.
Yep.
What you can see here, so it's come up now. It's got 1 of 10, so that means where I've told it to start at 12% and take one off every time, it's going to have to do it 10 times before it finishes doing all the back testing I've set it up to do. And if we look at the optimization results, using that 12% daily goal for the week, it made this is on a 100K account, so that's 4.3% profit, which is more than adequate. That's obviously good still, but we'll let it just work on a few more settings, and then we can change those settings to whichever one works out the best. I can tell you because I just did this back testing earlier today, but on the 11% goal, it gives me, I think, 7.5% profit for the week. And yeah, there we go, 7.2% profit. And then everything else is worse, right down until 6% profit for the day. And then it makes 6.9% profit. So almost the same. But instead of having 9.6% drawdown, it's only like 4.9%.
Oh yeah. And
So
that's the week, yeah, running that on the week.
yeah, we're just
Oh
back
yeah, so that's good.
over a week.
Yeah, that's good. Because
Um,
I definitely try and focus more on with the settings and that, trying to focus more on the drawdown, trying to keep it low, but still trying to maximize profits as well.
yeah. So what I would do here, even though the 11% was the best dollar value at the end, 6% was almost as good, but only half the drawdown. So that would be the setting I went with, 6%. I only ever put 12% in there to sort of show off once I know the market actually dropped a lot. It's just too much to expect in one day, regularly sort of thing. But yeah, it takes time and everything and to do back testing, but it really lets you see, how it averages out. If you remember that this graph here that we did before, um, if you couldn't see this as a visual representation, you'd think it was great, and it still is. Um, but the thing is, if someone started using the settings here, and then they've got 4 or 5 losing days in a row, so they change something, and then they start again, and then they have a losing run, and they miss out because they've changed the settings. They would then end up missing out on this one good week, which made up for it. Unfortunately, I've seen too many people do that. Um, and they're usually people that don't do the back testing
Mm.
because they'll use the template settings I give them, and then let's say they have a bad week, they'll change a few things, thinking, oh, that setting can't be very good, and then I'll have a really good week on my settings, and they'll have a losing week. And they get very, very frustrated. Sometimes I even felt guilty posting my good positive results because I know that they've already told me that they took a loss for the week.
Mm. Yeah, it still takes work, back testing.
It is. I mean, I can sell somebody this software which works. It can work hands free. I've got a lady that's using it, and she started using the latest version of Volatility Master on the 26th of February, and she made 19% profit in the first month.
Wow.
And then it had like a 6% loss, and then it's back up. So now, after almost 2 months, it's back up to about like 20% instead of 19. So the second month was only really an extra 1%. But that's I like sharing her results because I know she never ever touches it. She follows the trades on her phone, but she never even logs into a VPS to see the software itself. Um, so I
Well,
like,
that's a good example. That's a good
yeah, I
example.
like her results as an because I can't even use my results because I always play with my results. And that like I've got some of my FX book results and I'm using hers I've got her account connected up to my FX book as well because of that. But I tell a lot of people that um, sure it's good to have my FX book results to share results and everything to see how it's performed and to prove performance.
Yeah,
But generally, when it comes to EAs, um, sometimes that my FX book they're sharing really has nothing to do with the EA for the real dodgy operations, and,
yeah,
and for the not so dodgy operations, I would sort of say yes, they are the results that were achieved by that software, but they were achieved using that software by the developer of that software with some manual oversight. And nobody's ever going to really get better results out of an EA than the guy that made it.
yeah.
He knows it inside and out. Um, and it's no different with me. I expect to get better results than somebody that's just started using it. And getting back to the point, back testing allows you to see that it does work on average, and you can just leave it the hell alone.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I ended up making Volatility Master as a lot of the EAs I've purchased and used previously were on a monthly subscription. And
Yeah.
and so I ended up doing Volatility Master for a couple of reasons, but one of the main ones was to make it a yearly subscription, was so that people had time to learn it, play with it on a demo account, and then move on to live account and increase the funds, because people were always, because they had a monthly subscription coming in, they were really very, very anxious to start making some real money to cover that subscription. So it cost a little more initially to buy it for the year, averages out cheaper than the other ones I've purchased anyway. But you've got it for the full year, so you're not being pressured to try and make money straight away. So I tend to see people end up taking the time to learn it better that way. So you can see all the different results here. I won't bother letting it play out all the way, but I stop it there. And I know from doing it earlier today that the 6% goal worked out the best. So then I would change that one to 6. And another one, I know averaged out long term, a 500 or 5,000 point take profit is a little too large. So then I would play with this one. And, I might start it off at 5,000, but reduce it by 200 every time, all the way down to 1,500 or something. And I'd run through that and see which take profit distance worked out best on average over that time period. And some of the other settings that are worth changing are like the profit lock and the trailing stop loss distances. They're things that are worth playing around with that change from time to time. I know going back a month ago, so these are my gold settings. I had my profit lock activate at 400 and my trailing stop at 650, and that had been working really well for a long time. But ever since the US put all those tariffs on everybody, there's been so much more volatility in the market that
Yeah.
we had to greatly change the settings on the templates, basically. But anyway, at least your MT4 is playing the game. You can back test and have a bit of fun now.
Oh, I'll be up late now.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Which is good. I love this stuff.
There was one thing I wanted to show because a lot of people get stuck on this. If It's usually not too bad on all the forex pairs, but sometimes on gold and some of the indices, and depending on which broker you've got and how long you've had that MT4 platform installed for, there'll be sometimes a limited amount of historical data stored for you to do the back testing on. So the best way is to, you can use the visual mode, and you can go back a few months or something. So I've got that back to June, and if I click start, it might come up here with April. Oh, sorry, with August or something. That means that there's no data from June through until August. So you know that it's missing data there. The easiest way to download data is you just click Control F2. Try again. Function F2 I meant, sorry. And it'll bring up this box here. And depending on what you wanted to trade, like I had that here for US 30, and you can download the 1 minute. So if I click on the 1 minute, it's already colored, so they've changed the layout a bit. But anyway, so you can download the 1 minute data, the 5 minute data, the 15-minute data, etc. I'm pretty sure that if you download the 1 minute data, you'll have everything anyway, because the rest are just made off the 1 minute data. But it doesn't take that long to download it anyway.
Yeah.
It's just saying that you're getting it from MetaQuotes itself, which means it might slightly vary from your own broker. Not very much so. And then it's just kind of, there was no new data to download because I've already done it. And you could quickly, it only takes like 1 minute for each one, so you can download all of them if you want to. It won't take too long. But you still may find, depending on your broker, that you don't have complete history. There'll be, particularly on things like US 30, there'll be still a limited amount that you can work off, but you'll still have all you can possibly get, and you can make the most of it from there. On that note, so when you're trading, you've got two lots of fees. You've got commissions and you've got swap fees. And then you've also got spread.
Yep.
When you're back testing, you've got to set the spread yourself.
Yep.
So I'm back testing gold here, but if you have a look, every broker can be quite different. At the moment, gold's showing 41 points of spread.
Yep.
But that was probably right at the close of the market, so it's jumped up. I know myself on Pepperstone, 15 points is roughly what it mostly is. It'll be different at market open and different on some red folder news events, but on average, it's usually 15. So you just got to check your own broker out and try and come up with a spread figure here, which is, as close to accurate as you can get. The commission and swap fees, we basically don't carry trades overnight with Volatility Master, so there's no swap fees, but the commission fees that the backtester use will be based off whatever account you were last logged into on it. So I'm logged into a Pepperstone account here. So Pepperstone have a few different accounts. They have Razor accounts and standard accounts. So whichever one I'm logged into, those are the commissions that will be being added into the calculations for the actual back testing. So
yep.
keep that in mind too, because you might be back testing on a different MT4 platform, and that one might be just charging $3 commission per lot, and then you might be on, you might be actually trading live on a different broker, which is charging $7 per lot. So the results will vary a little bit from that as well. Anyway, that might do me for a chat this afternoon, I think, Jake.
Thank you very much.
Go and organise some dinner and all that.
I really appreciate that. Thank you for the lesson.